And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have a magnificent guest with us tonight, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the great and world renowned, not only an author, but a well known healer in the land. She is a Christian holistic quantum wellness practitioner by the name of Dr. Robin Braun. How are you doing this evening?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come have a very important conversation with us.
I am
Uh,
happy to be here.
yes, ma'am. I am someone who loves being on TikTok, and I came across your page and saw some of your inspiration at a time where I was needing it the other day, and I was like, "Oh, this is beautiful. Let me share this with the audience." For those of us who are watching this season, because I think this was the clip that I know it was talking about the holiday season and how it may make people feel sad and things of this nature. For those of us who are watching, in this season, who need upliftment and faith and wellness, what advice would you give to us?
So, we assume that everybody's happy at Christmas, right? It's a joyful thing. We give gifts, we celebrate Jesus, but a lot of people have a lot of trauma around Christmas. They didn't grow up in good homes, they didn't get celebrated. Uh, all of their memories of holidays were drunk family brawls, and
Mm, mm,
and just being sensitive to that, sometimes for people, it highlights their what they don't have, their losses, and they seem to be more emphasized during the holiday seasons, especially seeing around other people having, there's so more joy.
yes, ma'am.
And so one of the things I do is I try to teach from various perspectives, but I'm a quantum energy practitioner. And so I really try to teach from a science perspective of quantum physics and explain things in that term. So one of the ways to understand this is there's a principle called the law of expansion. And
Mm,
what that simply says is whatever we focus on, we give energy to it and it gets bigger. So when we focus on problems and sadness and hard things, those get bigger. And when we focus on good things and positive things, those get bigger. And so that's a science principle. And then from a personal standpoint, and I'm a Christian, so I use also scripture.
yes,
It
ma'am.
talks about, put on a garment of praise for a spirit of heaviness. There's something about gratitude that immediately raises your vibration, it lifts your spirits. And so very often, one of the things I coach people to do is when you're feeling sad and sorry for yourself, it's not that those emotions and traumas aren't real. We don't want to stuff them. We don't want to invalidate them. But we think about 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of those thoughts are subconscious. And those thoughts are either going to raise our vibration or lower vibration. So we truly can shift our own mood by simply going, I'm sad, but instead of dwelling in my sadness, I'm going to think of 5 things I'm grateful for, or I'm going to watch a funny movie, or, some sappy Hallmark Christmas movie, right?
Mm, mm.
And so we can take control of our lives in a lot of ways by paying attention to what we're thinking and how much time we're giving to negative things and how much time we're giving to positive things can truly affect our brain chemistry in a measurable way.
Wonderful. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Great. And people are showing you love all around the world. Thank you to everybody who's watching. Naima says, peace. Peace, Naima. Thank you for always showing love. Yes, ma'am. Our next question that we have for you today. Oh, can you please explain um like the term quantum? Like,
Sure.
yes, ma'am.
Sure. Quantum simply means the smallest particle. And really, what quantum energy principles are is understanding that everything is made of atoms, and atoms are energy, and everything can be measured by frequency. You and I are actually communicating via wavelengths that we call television, right? Sound is wavelengths. We listen, we hear, we communicate through sound wavelengths, we see through light wavelengths, and usually there's a combination. So every form of communication actually can be translated to frequency or wavelengths. We can also call it vibration. I interchange the word frequency and vibration. And so when we convert our thoughts of how the world operates into, are things positive, high frequency? Are they negative, low frequency? Then it helps us kind of have a framework of this science that we can't see, but it operates all the time. And when we recognize how powerful these things are, we can start to notice them and make changes vibrationally, in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual ways. And the best analogy I like to use is that we are like a hot air balloon. And so what holds a hot air balloon down to the ground are sandbags. And then what raises the hot air balloon up is the hydrogen. Right. So we look at sandbags are things we need to take out of our life. These are traumas, trapped emotions, toxic people. And then I go into also just wellness, like get rid of your plugins and your spray chemicals in your house. They're toxic, right? Look at labels. What are you putting in your body? How many chemicals are in the food? If everything we're adding to our life is a sandbag, it's weighing our hot air balloon down. And when we cut off the sandbags in every area, and then we add in more hot air, which is, healthy living, good food, clean chemicals. Just a fun fact that in the cosmetic industry, there are 12 banned chemicals in American cosmetics, and in the European standard has 2,400 banned chemicals. When you look at what's allowed in our world versus what other countries will tolerate, it's significantly different. So we're poisoning ourselves little by little. We just don't know. And then we have Wi-Fi, electromagnetic radiation, that is actually a toxin to the body. So all of those would be seen as sandbags pulling our hot air balloon down to the ground. And so when we can cut those off, take out the bad, add in the good, every little thing matters, our hot air balloon goes higher. And if you think about that hot air balloon soaring through the sky, I call that peace and joy. That's how we were designed.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. I want to stay right there. First of all, excellent breakdown. Uh, Brother Kente said, "Peace, family, peace." Brother Kente, thank you to everybody who was watching. And please let us know what city, state, and/or country you all are watching from. Thank you for everyone who continues to show love. Now, when you say the plugins and the spray, I'm very conscious of the smell, so I have a lot of Febreze. I spray a lot. What can we substitute that to make your room still smell good, the car still smell good, but without the chemicals?
That is a great question. So, about 10, 15 years ago, essential oils became really popular and kind of took off. So natural essential oils are made, like wild orange essential oil is made from orange peels, and it's that, and that's all that's in it, right? So it's concentrated down so that only a couple of drops make a difference. So you can get diffusers and diffuse oils in your house. And then there's a ton of companies now that do clean cleaning chemicals. Some of them have oils, some of them just eliminate the really toxic chemicals. You can find them in Walmart and all these other brands. They don't have to be super expensive. As a matter of fact, our economy runs on supply and demand. When people start demanding more natural products, then manufacturers are going to rush to meet that demand, and the price goes down. So it's actually very affordable. If you're doing candles, you want to do beeswax or soy and not put regular petroleum candles. And most of those fragrances that are added are toxic chemicals. And honestly, they can eat holes in the blood-brain barrier. They're really, really bad for us. And we just don't know that. A lot of people will get headaches and not know why. But it is a lot of times the scents that are out there that are. So that's just one example of, there's plenty of substitutes. And if you were Googling something, I would just say, Google green, environmentally friendly, safe, plugins, cleaning products, that type of thing. And you'll find plenty of options.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask that question, Brother Kente, very soon. I wanted to ask, you had one of your powerful videos was explaining the power of words. You said deciding versus choosing and how that can help affect our mood and our energy. Could you please elaborate?
Sure. So years ago, there's a man named Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he did an experiment on water, and you can look it up. I think I have a TikTok on it as well. But what he did was he took water and he taped words, he taped pictures, and he played music over the different water. And then he froze the water, and then they looked at it under what's called dark field microscopy, which is a different way of using a microscope to look at it. And what they found was that the things with positive words and images had beautiful formed crystals in the water. And the things that either had negative, like chaotic music, like some heavy metal music, that type of thing, negative words like I hate you, I'm going to kill you, uh, they had very chaotic patterns in the water. It wasn't organized. It wasn't, snowflakes are very beautiful, right? And they're very organized. So what he proved, and I've actually done, I have it on there in that same TikTok, an experiment that someone did with rice, and I was a friend of mine, so I saw the pictures, or the rice itself. And so she took 2 jars, put fresh cooked rice in them. She wrote love and hate on one, and or love and ugly, and then love and beautiful, and then hate and ugly on the other one. And she put them in 2 different parts of the house, and then she left them for like 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, the ones with love and beautiful was still white, and the one with hate and ugly had decayed. And they were 2 different, but they started out the same from the same batch of rice. And so people have repeated this experiment, that our words are so powerful. And from a quantum standpoint, here's why. Intention is energy, and it's either that positive high vibration energy or that negative low vibration energy. And we're made up of more than 68% water. So when we speak negative words about ourselves or other people, we're actually forming those water molecules in our body and theirs. When we think negative thoughts about ourselves, or like I said earlier, when we ruminate on negative thoughts, we're forming those water molecules, and same with other people. So words matter, not just because they have meaning, but they have frequency. And so the same word, like I think I gave an example on that of the word tenacious, we think of that as a really good word, like you never give up, you're going to go after it. And then stubborn actually means the same thing, but we think of stubborn as a negative word, right? So when we're able to reframe our conversation about ourselves and other people with the positive words, right? We can say, I have this stubborn child, and that's probably not a good thing. You're kind of cursing your child. That's not going to work out well for you either. You can say, I have this tenacious child. And how can we groom and mold her tenacity, like to change the world, versus thinking of her as she's going to be rebellious and get in trouble her whole life. So how I think about that quality, can absolutely affect their beliefs.
Powerful. Yes, ma'am. Excellent job. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sister Nia, and everybody who was showing love. People are just, firing and clapping emojis and sending you love. And that's positive energy. Yes, ma'am. Our next question that we have for you is we want to ask about when you say holistic wellness. May you elaborate on unpack what a holistic wellness is?
Sure. So holistic simply means body, soul, and spirit, and all of it. We do all of it. Some people think, as a Christian, there's a scripture that talks about body, soul, and spirit, and we kind of have this mindset of this pretty cheesecake we've cut in these pretty 3 pieces. Here's the body, here's the soul, here's the spirit. As a practitioner, when I'm working with people, I've come to understand that most body issues are caused by emotions and traumas. So many of our physical issues do not have a physical source. They have an emotional source or a spiritual source. And so I like to think or teach that the body, we are like a homemade cherry pie that they forgot to put the cornstarch in, and you try to cut a piece and all the juice just runs together. And so when we can look at a human being as a whole, it helps us understand it's complicated, right? It's not a simple answer. And the modality that I created is able to identify root causes that are physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as remedies. And we look at, in one session, we can cover all the gamut of all those issues. But understanding that God designed us a certain way, and we call that, I say, line with design. We were designed to be in harmony with his design. Okay. And what traditional medicine does is they just look at a symptom and they drug you, they give you a drug, they cut something out, right? They do something to just address the symptom. But naturopaths teach that the law of naturopathy says that a symptom is your body's attempt to heal a problem. So if I get a fever, that's my immune system fighting off an infection. Well, the doctor says take a Tylenol, but the fever was designed to kill the problem. So we don't want the Tylenol is just another poison put in the body to stop the fever, but the fever is not the problem. The fever is the solution.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so holistic medicine says, and allopathic medicine or traditional medicine, they don't know how to look for cause, right? Now, if you get in a car accident and you break a bone or whatever, there's your cause, right? You have trauma. But we're going to look at, but we need to also not just set the bone, but we need to figure out how to release the trauma energy that the body has stored from the accident. So we look at the whole body in all these pictures. And yes, we can address symptoms, but our goal, if we remove the root cause, the body will heal itself and doesn't need all the interventions.
Okay, excellent. Man, this is powerful. We're very grateful. Peace, Miriam, and thank you to everybody who continues to show love. We want to stay right there. Dealing with we were speaking about the genders before we went live. A lot of the women who I've interviewed and come into contact with uh, are like, I'm doing the work. I'm working on myself. I'm, therapy, whatever it takes to affirmations, religion, faith. Women seem to be more willing. Men seem to be more hesitant. Uh, why is that, and what can we do to better? Because I gotta represent for the men. Like, man, what can we do to focus
Absolutely.
on our wellness and our healing?
Sure. And I think there's many reasons. So first of all, physiologically, women have 40% more neurons that connect their right and left brain. So your right brain
Mm.
is your emotional brain, your left brain is your thinking brain. And that's why women are more multitaskers than men are. Okay. But it also makes us more wired to value emotion, to identify emotion. And so we're just wired differently. And so that's not a man's fault, but it's easier for a woman in a situation to identify a negative emotion attached to that situation because we have more capacity to make that translation. So one, I don't want to say handicapped because that means less than. Men are just wired differently, and that doesn't make it wrong or bad. We can't have everybody be super emotional all the time. You don't want your soldiers on the front lines freaking out and flipping out, and so by design there's some things that men have that women don't, and vice versa. But one of those is an easier way to connect to your emotions. Okay.
Mm.
So when you say, well, I didn't have a bad childhood, or I can't remember my childhood being that bad, or everybody had a bad childhood, it's because it was easier for you to disconnect emotionally from your childhood than it was for a woman. Okay. Now, like I said earlier about those sandbags, we still have those trapped emotions and traumas in there, and they're affecting all of us. Women just tend to be more motivated to feel better by doing that. Men are a little, and if you want to say a head heart connection, women are more likely to have a little bit more of a connection than men are because of that compartmentalization. So that's one reason. Another reason is society does not really uh, promote or support or affirm men for being emotional, right? In fact, the opposite is true. Men are called don't be big boys, don't cry. Fathers teaching sons, and then those sons teaching their sons, and they're teaching their sons to just be tough. And yet God made us all emotional beings. Men have no
Mm,
less emotions than women do, right? It's just the idea of processing it. So typically, a woman is more likely to go to therapy because she wants to talk about her pain and feel better.
mm,
A man will typically only go if things get really bad and he is able to identify. And I'm stereotyping. I don't mean to. I'm just giving you typical cases.
yes, ma'am.
But men will wait till they have an addiction problem or their wife's going to divorce them or something urgent before they'll go ask for help. I think men, the testosterone masculine thing too is that typically it's easier for women to ask for help than it is men. So we have programming, we have natural wiring about masculinity, we have difference in brain wiring that make it easier for women than men. And yet, we live in a world that's predominantly still run by men. And so, man, if we can just get those men on board with transformation, right? Especially fathers. I mean, so much of people's wounds are father wounds. And when we can heal those generational bloodline things that get passed down from generation to generation, and somebody breaks that, and a father gets healing, it totally changes that next generation of those children, what they come up with. And our relationship with God is primarily determined by how our relationship with our father was. We see
Mm.
God as our father, and so subconsciously we're going to project those beliefs on God.
Okay, you just went super deep. Let's stay right there. So how do we help heal from that so that we can have a better, more positive view of the our Father who art in heaven, like God,
Yep.
versus our biological father. How can we? How would you? What would you suggest?
So I actually wrote a book on this, and
Beautiful.
so it's called Living Like a Son. And I think just, the whole healing process really starts with going back and pulling up to the surface of the wound. Okay. So, what was the wound? We have multiple wounds, but what was that wound? And then, from an energetic standpoint, it's called the law of destructive interference, basically, scientifically. And it's the same idea if, like, two boats on a lake go down the lake and they have a wake, and both of those wakes hit each other, and then you see it just go calm, or noise canceling headphones, right? So it's the idea if two waves are exactly opposite each other, they'll cancel each other out.
Mm, mm,
From an energetic medicine standpoint, the releasing of trauma or trapped emotion is like canceling out those emotions that are coming to the surface, or you can feel it like they're being released. Okay. And so, but we also want to look at the beliefs. So if my father worked all the time and was absent, the belief I might have is I don't matter, I'm not important. So how would I believe that God cared about my life if my father was working all the time? Okay. If my father actually was abusive, then why would I trust Father God? Because he's just going to
mm,
punish me or beat me up, right? And so all of these things, we don't realize we're transferring those beliefs to God, but most people are. They will consciously tell you they're not, but their subconscious will speak otherwise. And so
mm,
if we had a loving father who was, and I had a great father, but he was an engineer. And so he did not know how to cater to a little sensitive girl's emotions. He just didn't know how to communicate with me about my emotions. So, the translation, now fortunately I went through healing pretty early on, but the transference of that would be that, well, God cares and he's present, but he doesn't care about how I feel. How I feel
mm,
doesn't matter, right?
mm.
So these are pretty, this isn't rocket science. I didn't invent it. I'm not the first person to talk about this. But as a therapist for all these years, I'm just going to tell you it's true. I just see it consistently over and over again confirmed.
Beautiful. Yes, ma'am. Well, let's start right here with your books. How can we get them, and how can we support? Like, where is it on Amazon? Or go to a website?
Yeah, they're both. My website, drrobinbraun.com, will have all my books on there. Also, people who want some therapy, there's a link to make appointments. And then the modality I created, I can literally train anybody to do it. They don't have to have any type of master's degree or naturopathic education. Everything I do is trained using cheat sheets, and it really is something anybody can learn how to do. And then you can learn to practice on yourself and on other people. Even if you don't want to do it for a profession, you can do it just to get your own healing or your family, that type of thing. So there's information about the training on my website as well.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. We have a brief 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. We are grateful for every like, share, and subscription. Thank you all very much for every anonymous Cash App, for all the super chats. Thank you all. 1 second. We're coming right back to our illustrious guest. And please let us know your questions and comments in the chat so we can have them for her. 1 second. Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need any of that. Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Perfect. Thank you all very much. Yes, ma'am. Right back to Dr. Braun. Our next question that we have for you, ma'am, is shame. So there's been shame sometime in announcing or letting your family, friends know, hands up, I need some healing. I need some work to do. I want to go lay on a couch. I want to talk to somebody virtually. How can we eliminate that shame?
So I'm 60, and I would say my generation, most people did not go to therapy unless I had an eating disorder, which was what sent me to therapy. But most people, it wasn't common, it wasn't done. We just didn't talk about it. You didn't hear about it very much. You had like the school counselor, but that was as much as it went. So most of the time, what you saw is that it was going to be alcoholism or drug addiction or something like that, or even porn addiction or that type of thing that sent people to therapy. So you had to have a pretty severe thing going on. So I have 4 daughters, age 21 to 32. She's 32 already. Oh my goodness. And so they started going to therapy years ago because their generation is like, hey, we want to be happy, right? And we like therapy, and they're girls, so maybe that's part of it too. It's easier for them, and their mom's a therapist, but there's just a more of an opening. I think that one of the biggest things I see in this Generation Z are anxiety disorders. And so they want to go to therapy when they're 12, 13 years old. And so it has shifted. I'll do a little plug. I think one of a major factor in anxiety disorders is electromagnetic radiation, Wi-Fi, 5G, all of this electronics, because it keeps the body in a chronic state of mild fight or flight. And so, there's a longer explanation for that, but that's part of what I believe is causing so much of the anxiety is all the devices, using the devices, being on the device, not just using it, but the frequency in EMFs, electromagnetic radiation, is a man-made frequency, and our body is a supercomputer, and it recognizes every frequency in nature. It has a database, right? So it knows what this is and that is. It doesn't know what EMFs are because they're not in nature. And so it sees this and it thinks this is an invader, right? And one of the like clear analogies I'll give is if a tiger walks in the room, what would you do? You would run in the other room and shut the door and call the control, right? But what if there's no doors and the tiger follows you from room to room? Right? You stay in an adrenalized, hyper vigilant fear state. That's what EMFs do. They're like little tigers that just follow us around all the time. but we can protect and harmonize EMF frequencies, and it's not that hard. And that's one of the, and you can find that information on my website too. But that is just such an important thing that every one of us needs to do, because more and more people are getting ill as 5G was released. And I have stories, and then it's going to get worse because our body doesn't know how, can't stay in harmony. People, a lot more heart arrhythmias too. People can't stay in harmony with this EMF bombardment that's going on.
Yes, ma'am. Excellent information. Thank you all very much. Brother Kente, I'm coming to your question. Brother Quentin Alexander, thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who was watching. I wanted to ask you, ma'am, about addiction. So you spoke of drug addiction, porn addiction, alcoholism. Um, or is one addiction more, how does it matter which addiction, or is all addictions like equal depending on the person?
Well,
How does it work?
usually the root cause of addiction is that stuffing your emotions and stuffing your trauma, and then your body can't deal with it anymore and you want to medicate pain. So that is kind of more the emotional psychological root. There's some people are just wired, have a very sensitive brain chemistry, and they're malnutrition. So almost every American brain is malnutrition because the food here is not giving us what we need. So I really believe everybody needs to supplement to, and your brain is a very delicate organ. So we don't get enough B vitamins, we don't get enough omega-3s. There's all these other things. And we're not absorbing all of that nutrition so that we can regulate our serotonin and dopamine, which is why we use alcohol. Mimics serotonin in the brain. Alcohol is produced in the gut. If you eat a terrible diet, your gut isn't producing the amount of serotonin it needs. It's not getting to the brain. We're tempted to use a substance. So every addiction is usually indicative of kind of a different deficiency and what an imbalance. And most people have a drug of choice. Most addicts have a drug of choice. And that can usually point to what may have been introduced to them where they kind of formed a bond with it, whether it was alcohol or food or drugs. But it's also very indicative of maybe what their brain is deficient in, as far as serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, all these different neurotransmitters. And so hypothetically, I would say some of the hardest addictions are going to be, meth, crack, and porn. And one of the reasons for that is, we're sexual beings. And so it's natural for us to have a sex drive, and it's not wrong. But the porn also, from my experience in working with the occult, the porn industry is very connected to Satanism and the occult. And so you are literally like opening a door to a demon when you look at porn, because it's programmed that way. They literally have witches that cast spells and do witchcraft over the porn industry because they make $150 billion a year doing it. So it very much grabs a hook on men's hearts and becomes very difficult. And especially when it's introduced as a little boy, right? You're a little boy, you don't know it's wrong. You do, but you don't. There's this fantasy door that's open to you. And with technology and smartphones, it's so accessible in just a second. And it creates that hook, and it creates a dopamine rush, kind of like cocaine does. And then once that hook is there, it's one of the harder ones to break free from. And it's also one of the most destructive ones because it destroys intimacy. I think all addictions destroy intimacy, but especially porn, because there is a lot of shame attached to it. It's hard to have a healthy, intimate relationship with the opposite sex when you have this kind of secret life over here with porn, and especially towards women, just because women definitely feel betrayed, or that their husband is being unfaithful if he's looking at porn, because in his mind he's having sex with another woman. Right. And so it's normalized in our society, and it's unfortunate because yes, it's hard for men have sex drives, porn is everywhere, sexuality is everywhere, and it's a battle, and it is every man's battle, but it's probably one of, in my opinion, the most destructive forces in America today. destroying the family, breaking it from within and pulling it apart. So
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I want to stay right there with uh, your work with the occult. Could you like, I mean, explain, like, I watch documentaries about the occult and things of this nature. Could you let
yeah,
us know your work with the occult?
yeah. So lots of things qualify as the occult, but I one of the clients tell I work with are survivors of satanic ritual abuse. So
Mm,
in Satanism, people have trauma-based mind control and super soldier to government projects like Born Identity, Mentoring Candidate. Okay.
MK Ultra.
MK Ultra, right.
Okay.
So what that does in the brain, what trauma does in the brain is it causes you to like split off. It's called dissociative identity disorder, and form these other parts or personalities that are amnesic to the rest of the being. And so trauma therapy that focuses on helping those deeper traumas. It's complex, but that's one of the therapies I do, and specifically too with, I've been a minister for many years working with inner healing and deliverance, so dealing with the demonic realm and witchcraft and the occult realm. It's actually everywhere and pretty common. I'm kind of laughing. You got a picture right behind your head with the one eye covered.
Oh yes. Yes. But these are all album covers. These are all album covers. Yes, ma'am.
I
But yes,
know, I know. I'm just joking, but it's like, oh, there's that. Let's throw the Illuminati symbol
yes,
up on
ma'am.
the
Okay.
eye, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay, but I want to stay right there. So my mother, Sharifa Muhammad, one of my favorite rap groups is Bone Thugs and Harmony coming up, and they had a song called Mr. Ouija. They was always talking about Ouija boards.
yeah,
I go to the store, get the Ouija board, come home. I think my sister tells my grandma, tells my mom's, Joshua has a Ouija board under his bed. My mom loses it. Like it was like there could be no devil, no Satan in this house. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the board.
sure,
I was just like rap music, just put it
yeah.
on. She went like probably
Gateway.
top five most upset moments she's ever been. Caused by me, by the way. Yes. My question is, was she justified? Was she overreacting?
Well,
Are these
you want to hear something funny? Just earlier today, I was talking to someone, and when she was 12, she played the Ouija board,
okay?
and right after that, she started getting attacked demonically every night, and
Mm,
being able to see demons and second heaven stuff. She developed psychic powers. Stuff would move, right? She would move stuff. So I was like, oh, that's a great testimony. I'm going to use that. I just didn't expect to use it a couple hours later. So, but yes, we call it. So there's a principle, and there's some books written on this. We call courts of heaven or legal ground, right? So the way I teach it is God is a loving father. Satan is always looking to steal, kill, and destroy. And he's looking for inroads into our life where he has permission to do that. So when we dabble in the occult, it's like opening the door, right, to that tiger. And he wants to harm us. And so that's this young woman. She opened that door, didn't know anything was wrong with it. She also had some occult in her bloodline, which was another what we call legal ground. And that allowed those demons to have an inroad into her life. Okay. So that's
mm,
why it doesn't happen to everybody, because it's a bigger picture than one and done. And I opened this door. But other people have had that testimony. They played the Ouija board, and then stuff didn't go so well for them after that. Things started happening. And
mm.
yeah, we don't want to mess with this area. There's not enough money in the world to pay off being tormented and terrorized. So
Absolutely. And this is great. Okay, so I want to stay. Uh, so many of the documentaries I watch with my sister, especially on TikTok,
sure.
are dealing with the children and the uh, the trauma that they experience in the cults and things of this nature. Uh, is that, and I love Law and Order SVU, so you see like the Olivia Benson, they come in and they saving the children. It's like, oh, thank you, you got them out of there. Is this something that happens like movies Eyes Wide Shut, where it's organized and they are the mass on type thing, or is this in small backwood towns and people unknowingly are just doing this? And how can we work against this?
Well, those are great questions. So both Eyes Wide Shut is, and I don't know if you know that Stanley Kubrick died shortly. Yeah.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. He's one of my
So,
favorite directors.
and there were 45 minutes they wanted him to cut out and he wouldn't cut it.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So he was revealing a high level Illuminati ritual. Okay. These are the wealthy, these are the Rothschilds, these are the wealthy Illuminati
Yes,
bloodlines.
ma'am.
Okay. So that type of ritual, they're all very organized and structured, and definitely different ones worship different gods, but they're all satanic or demonic, beings. So you've got that. So that realm of Illuminati rituals, things like that, and everything has a purpose. Nothing is accidental, and that's probably a much longer conversation than just answering your question. You definitely have out in the woods where the black hoodies, right? And they're going to sacrifice human sacrifices, sex rituals, blood rituals, animal sacrifices, whatever, out in the middle of the woods because no one's going to see them. They're going to light their fires. They're going to have their pentagram, whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Basements, you're going to find it in Freemasonic temples. Not every one, but in the basement, you're going to find that's a place where you'll see sacrifices done. And I hate to say it, but even in churches, churches sometimes are covers for covens, and there's covens within the church, and those things are going on. These people are my clients. I know these for a fact. They remember their memories. And then you have underground military bases, underground Disney. You have all this underground world where people are being experimented on. We're dealing with hybrid programs, implants, different types of mind control. It's very scientific. Okay. And then on the military base too, you're dealing with the things like the Manchurian Candidate. We're trying to create these super soldiers.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's definitely a mix of all those, very much crossover in many of those. They're all kind of loosely connected, but may have different ways they present. But what they have in common is they're going to traumatize, they're going to do mind control. There's usually going to be sex and blood. And the idea is that Lucifer, Satan, whichever demonic god that they're serving, gets great power from evil, from these evil acts. And they get some kind of reward. But you're also dealing with, and this is where we operate in love and compassion, is that most of these people are dissociated, even the perpetrators. So they switch into a part who doesn't remember what's being done. They've been programmed to do this there, and then that gets passed down. And the truth is that they program and traumatize their own children, right? Because they're carrying the bloodline down. The Illuminati is creating the next level of their own bloodline. And it's the bloodline stuff that where they are going to be programmed to be the next layer of the occult, right? They're the next generation of the occult. The throwaway children are the ones that end up sacrificed, but the sexual trauma, all the other ritual trauma, they're doing this to their own children. But they're so brainwashed in such an opposite way that they don't see it as a bad thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to get so dark, but you asked the question.
No. We right here. I've done a lot of research on John Benet Ramsey and the parents and the children and who knew and did the brother and all. So I'm a history major.
Did
so
you hear the latest one that now they're saying Erica Kirk is actually John Benet Ramsey? Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't heard that yet. See, I knew it was gonna be cool as soon as I knew it was gonna be cool. So you put me on to some stuff. Okay, good. Thank you. And people in the comments, my sister Naima says, yes, we love occult documentaries. I'm telling you, like this is
all right, I'm the right show.
yes. And we got to talk about that. Speaking of worshiping, idol worship, right? And worshiping of celebrities is something that I see uh, in 85% of the population, but especially I see it leaking in. It's like leaking, it's in religion now. A lot of religious people who claim that there's only one God, one creator. Yet when celebrities come around, they worship them like they are Jesus or a deity.
And
What?
like mega church pastors become those celebrities too. I think we have well, if you think about our design, right? We are designed to worship. So we know what happens, you put someone on in the church, I'll speak in the church. Somebody gets elevated to a position, we put them on a pedestal, and we see them as larger than life and above human and amazing. And so we have them on this pedestal until they fall. And so, I always say men don't make good gods, right? So all of that
Okay.
praise and adulation very often makes it difficult for them to stay very humble. So that it becomes this kind of reciprocal thing. And yeah, there's just this thing about us that we're wired to worship. So if we don't have a rightly aligned source that we're worshiping, right, something else is going to draw us. And that, I mean, if you think about throughout history, right, and they're worshiping little statues. I know the statues represent something else.
Yes, ma'am.
They're still little statues. I'm like, y'all are dumb.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So, but it represents something else. But we get, living God is not in a statue. He's bigger than that. And so I think that honestly, I think we all have the propensity to do this, right? And I think that there's, different people are maybe more wired to enjoy fame or attention. And so like if a famous person gives you attention, like I must be special, or, and I'm like, hey, they just put their pants on the same way. I,
Mm.
I had a few famous people as clients, so it kind of leveled. We're all the same. We're all these icebergs. We all have this stuff in our subconscious, and most famous people, quite honestly, are kind of miserable because, well, some of them had to sell their soul to Satan to get their position, right?
Mm.
But the other ones, it's just the world of fame and fortune is typically not the most integrous group of people. And so, and there's usually a lot of trauma involved. I mean, we just saw this stuff come out with P. Diddy, right? So it's traumatic. All those people were traumatized. And then it's swept under the rug. Oh, because, oh, well, at least if you were molested, it was by P. Diddy. They
Mm.
considered
Mm.
an honor, right?
Mm.
So anyway, and I'm not picking sides on that, but this is what happens in the wealth, people who have a lot of wealth, and they're in a world that really isn't governed by God or the Holy Spirit. Anything goes. When you have wealth, you just saw the boundaries, and then you start doing, including drugs, all the boundaries dissolve away. And if you spin something the right way, you can pretty much convince anyone to do it. So, and then witchcraft can impact that too as well. So,
Okay, that's great. Let's stay right there. So my question to you is, it would make sense that other rich people, wealthy people, or people who are part of the occult and their organizations would defend. But why does it seem it's I don't see the rich people defending Diddy. When he was going to court, it was his family, but a lot of celebrities backed away from him.
sure.
Instead, it was the masses of people who he wouldn't help or don't know their name who are jumping and fighting over him. What is that?
Well, they were probably complicit, and so they needed
Mm,
to go quiet and back away.
mm,
He was like the sacrificial lamb for everybody. Or people suddenly justify, like, well, I went to his parties, but I only went to one, and what he did was so much worse. And it's just the way we rationalize sin, if you will.
yes, ma'am.
But yeah, I think that's part of it. Is the saying about rats fleeing a sinking ship. You start seeing the ship sinking, they're climbing all over each other to get out of the sinking ship. As long as the
Mm,
ship's floating and there's lots of cheese, we're good. But the minute the ship starts sinking, we're out of here, every man for himself. So,
absolutely. Okay, well, we just have two more questions for you, and some people are in the
okay.
comments. Thank you all very much for people who are showing love. Beautiful, excellent. What type of music do you enjoy listening to, ma'am?
So, like I said, I've been a Christian a really long time.
Okay.
Different people connect to God better different ways. Some people like to read scripture and they connect best to God through scripture. Some people through prayer. I connect best to God through worship, through music. Okay.
Mm,
I feel his presence, and it's just, I enter into that presence very easily through music. And so of course I love worship music, and all kinds. I mean, I love the contemporary. I'm not really as much of an old gospel type of, church music, but more contemporary worship music. And so that would be, my primary type of music I listen to. But I like country, I like pop, I like songs here and there. And so I'm not like religious about never listening to other music. I'm not a
It's
rap
good.
fan. I've never been a heavy metal fan.
Okay.
I like where I can sing along. I know the lyrics. It's easy to listen to. It's not too chaotic. Like, it's more peaceful, calming music. Okay, but occasionally some good upbeats. I'm a party music girl. Wedding music, wedding
Okay. Okay.
music. All the traditional ones that everybody loves. I would fall in that category. But most of what I listen to is worship music. So.
Okay. Beautiful. Could you let us know an example of worship music? What is that?
Sure. So you have Bethel music, you have
Okay.
Maverick City would be two famous ones, Upper Room, Mercy Culture, trying to think, Elevation, Hillsong.
Okay.
Those are all pretty popular ones that are, they're published in their albums and things like that you can buy. And then you have other smaller people, lesser known, who are kind of mixed in there, but those are kind of the big names that you sing in church on Sunday with the
Yes,
words
ma'am.
on
Could
the
you get
screen.
like an example, like Elijah Wright? Like it's like um, uh, I'm trying to think of a song, Amazing Grace. Like, do they sing like what type of songs like would they sing? Do they make
Well,
their own music
most
up
of them
or
are a little
like
more rocky. You've got bass
okay,
and
like
you've
rock
got
and roll?
drums and you've
Okay.
got guitar, and
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
they're more upbeat. They're full instrumental, versus old. They're not old hymns, but a lot of them will
Okay.
take hymns and rework them and create different arrangements with hymns that are pretty cool. And
And it's instrumental.
no, there's words.
Oh, there's words. Okay. Okay. I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
know. Yes.
yeah. There's lyrics. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, and some of them are, songs worshiping God. Some of them are just, how much God loves us. Some of them are just, you know, walking the Christian walk, which is hard
Okay.
sometimes. So yeah, there's all over the map what kind of songs.
Excellent. And thank you. And people, fire emojis and all that good things. Thank you, everybody who's watching people's podcast. Once again, before we ask our last question, your website or the name of your books, how can we support you?
So the two books, I'll go over my books. So my most recent book is called Living Like a Son, Releasing Blocks to Truly Knowing a Loving Father God.
Mm.
Prior to that is Thrive, Applying Biblical and Quantum Energy Principles to Live a Transformed Life. Living Like a Son kind of piggybacks on Thrive, so it's probably better if you read that one first. I have a book for spouses of sex addicts, because I was married to a sex addict. So it's called Journey Through the Storm, Healing from the Trauma of Your Husband's Porn Sex Addiction. I think that's the subtitle. And then I have 30 Days to Peace and Joy, which is like a workbook on working through changing your, like the hot air balloon principle, like how to do some applications. My books are practical; they have practical application, and it's also, they're very much wired towards, we're called to take personal responsibility for our own lives. We're not victims,
Mm-hmm.
and so how to do that, in our own life. And so my website, drrobinbraun.com, the books are on there. All the information about me is on there. Where to find me, book podcasts or speaking, as well as therapy sessions and training. And I also have a whole tribe of practitioners that I make referrals out to who are,
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. I put you in the hot seat. This is just part one. Can we get you to come back and go? We can go over
Sure.
chapters of your book, each book, so we can understand that.
Yeah, I would love to do that. That would be great.
Thank you very
I
much. But
appreciate it. And I love this podcast, because I'll be honest, not knowing anything about coming on this, and I just love your attitude and your
oh, thank you.
heart. And this is probably not a typical audience that would watch my podcast. So I love getting exposed to a new audience because at the end of the day, I just find, and that's kind of what I love about TikTok is all walks of life have so much common experience that really unites us more than it separates us. And so I love getting introduced into new, you know, tribes of people who probably wouldn't have otherwise found me. So
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask you, you spoke about being a mother and your daughters. What advice would you give to future mothers?
So one of the biggest pieces I advice would give to a young woman and a young man is if you will go really invest in your healing at a young age. I have amazing children and I did so much work on myself as well as closed a lot of doors to that legal ground. And they really just have blessed lives, right?
Mhm.
They don't get sick. I haven't taken them to the hospital. They don't have a lot of trauma and drama in their life. And I know that at least in part, that's because I worked really hard to overcome my own dysfunction from my childhood to understand how to parent out of a place of healthiness, not out of a reaction to my own hurts and wounds, and not continue that generational cycle. So that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give.
That's excellent. You have been a wonderful guest, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you all for watching. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off of the People's Podcast. Everybody stay tuned because part two is going to be so much better. We're going to go even another level and going over each chapter in her book, God willing.